Hi, everyone. I'm Hanna Lafferty with Charles Bridge. We are here to talk about branches of hope, and I'll have my lovely co hosts introduce themselves. Anne, why don't you go first?
Hi, my name is Ann Magee. I'm an elementary school teacher, narrative nonfiction author and poet, New Jersey mom of three, and a lifelong learner.
I'm Nicole Wong, illustrator, Branches of Hope, full-time illustrator. I've done many, many books with Charles Bridge Publishing. They're a great place to work with. I have a daughter who's 8, and I live here in Fall River, Massachusetts.
Awesome. Thank you both for joining me today. I'm really excited to talk about this book. Before this book came out, I had never heard of the Survivor Tree before. So, why don't we talk about the inspiration behind the story? And why don't you start us off again?
Yeah, I hadn't known about the Survivor Tree either. It was my family and I went on a trip to New York City to the memorial site, to the museum and the memorial site, and it was a hard day. My kids were middle teens, so it was about the right time. I wanted them to see and experience it. And we were in the museum store, and I saw this little pamphlet type thing called the Survivor Tree, and it's it's a pictorial account and factual account of the tree, pretty much, um, straightforward, giving all the basic background factual information about the tree and how it was damaged in the collapse of the buildings, and how it was rehabilitated. And it just amazed me. I just thought to myself, how could I? This was in 2016, so how could I not have known of the story yet? And how amazing this story is, and how this story needs to find its way into the hands of children, because this is the story I wish I had had when my kids were younger, to tell about an event that is going to be talked about um, forever now. It's a part of history, so kids need to know about it. And this sort of impressed me, enough to say. And I wasn't on the lookout for a story then. Really wasn't um, a quote unquote author then. Always looking for good stories, but so yeah, I just said, I got home, and the next month I wrote a draft, and I thought, this is a story I really want to see if I can make happen.
Nicole, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I never heard of the Survivor Tree at all. I feel terrible. I never heard of it until I received Anne's manuscript, and then I couldn't believe that there were saplings from the tree in so locally near me in Boston, and I've walked by this tree many, many times.
Oh,
Never noticed it. I feel terrible. But I'm so glad that you wrote this book, because it's such a nice, hopeful story. I know Branches of Hope, but it truly is a hopeful story after such a chaotic and devastating time. Having lived through it and then trying to explain it to my daughter, who, when I received the manuscript, was 7 and just didn't understand the tragedy that had happened, and then being able to share the experience of the Boston Survivor Tree with her to help understand that there's hope from all this, that we can grow out of this. It was wonderful. And thanks to your beautiful words, we had to do that.
No, that was amazing. At the back of the book, there are pictures of both of you with your family at each tree. And it's incredible to think about the scope of this project, too. To your point, Anne, you found out in 2016, and now with the 20th anniversary, it's just kind of incredible to be like, yeah, there's still something like lovely about that, about, I guess, a note of perseverance throughout it. But definitely.
definitely.
One of the things that I also really love about this story, too, is that there's a story within a story. So we have the main text and images that illustrate the survivor tree as it grows back to health, but we also follow a little girl as she grows up and becomes a firefighter. So, how was this concept created, and how do you both feel it draws the reader into the story even further?
So like I said, I started out writing the story about the survivor tree, and the facts were pretty much laid out for me, knowing the history of the tree and exactly what it went through to be dug up, taken to the Bronx, rehabilitated at that nursery for 10 years, and then come and replanted. And that in itself is a wonderful story. But knowing that children need a sort of a main character to sort of to see in the book and look at, I imagined, as I was writing the tree story, I was imagining a little girl. You know, my own little girl was 3 at the time, and so I was sort of picturing this little girl going through the seasons of the tree, alongside the tree, kind of thing, growing and you know, trying to move forward, like the tree was. So it's kind of funny how things happen, because when Karen Boss picked this up, she immediately said, you know, yeah, we do need a main character. What are your thoughts? And I'm like, well, just so happens I do have some thoughts, because I did picture in my mind a little girl moving through the story alongside the tree. And in my mind, she was in some way connected to a firefighter, not necessarily the father figure in her life, but just because I just, you know, the images of all those rescue workers, and knowing the firefighters that lost their lives running into the building when people were running out, and giving not a second thought. I knew, sort of wanted to honor that. So Karen immediately, you know, loved it, and we just went from there, thinking about a parallel story to to go alongside the tree. It's such a, you know, the tree story is a metaphor for all of us, and putting it, boiling it down to it, that being part of that one character's storyline, just really made sense. So I'm so glad Karen was on board, and the few illustrator notes we may have provided for Nicole, she just ran with it and made so much more out of what my thoughts were originally. Thank you, Nicole, for that.
Well, thank you. I was looking back at the original manuscript, and I realized there were very few notes. I always hope to do justice to what your words were, what the day was, and I really wanted to honor everybody's memory at the site, and at the time, and also your words and you. And I had never met you before, so I just had to make up a whole a family, and I hope that you were on board with everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love your little, like, I don't know if I can share these little secret notes, but like these little like secret things that, like, on the first page before you even get to the story, they're having a picnic, and what do you see? They're having picnic in their lunchbox there, but they're having pears. And it's a calorie pear tree. I was like, ooh, look at you.
I like to put little Easter eggs in. I don't tell anybody about them.
Tell me about. You have to tell me. I don't know if there's more Easter eggs. You have to tell me about them.
You need a reveal.
I hate to say this, but sometimes I put them in and I forget until
I'll be looking closely.
So you have to. I just sort of, I'm in the moment, and you just kind of get into that Zen place where you're just adding things, and you don't really realize that you're making it a bigger story, and with little Easter eggs in there.
I love that. I don't know if I can say too about the dog that you put in there, the stuffed animal. That's especially something I'm crazy about. You can see I have behind me. I have a stuffed animal behind me.
Oh my goodness.
Because I looked right online, and I'm like, oh, I can use this idea. In almost every book, in almost every page, starting on the very first page, the little girl has dropped her little stuffed Dalmatian dog with the fire hat on, and it's literally on almost every page. And then when she turns 7, and she has a little brother in the picture, he's now reaching for it. So there's a transition there of passing on the little lovey to her brother, and the whole bringing together, full circle, the whole firefighter community, that whole idea. Just, I love it. And so I had those during my book launch where the kids got to have their dog sit alongside them as I read the story. And I said, raise your dog up when you see the dog in the picture. And it really helps the kids connect to the pictures, to the illustration, to the story, because it's a hard story to do as a read aloud, I found, just because it's a serious topic and hopeful, of course, and naturally lovely at the end and through the seasons and everything of the tree, which I especially love as well. But I wanted to have a way to engage the kids in a way that reflected the idea of the book, and just really kept them engaged and looking for the little puppy.
Yeah, I like to try to put a dog in or animals.
Do you
I'm
in
just
your
a
work?
big
You like to
lover
put dog?
anyway,
Okay.
and and the whole history of fire dogs is just it works so well. And fire Dalmatian dogs were used in the original of firehouses as to protect the horses as they raced towards a fire, because other animals would come and try to attack the horses while they went and rushed to a fire, and the Dalmatian dogs would help protect the firefighters, and they're very loyal. They would sit with the horses, they would calm them down during the chaotic times of fires, and it's just it's nice to have a little girl always needs something that is comforting, in the story.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question that I have too, because to your point, Anne, it's a hard story to balance. It's very necessary, but it also is a moment of, we'll say, extreme terror, right? Nicole, for illustrating, how do you achieve that balance? Something that I love about your illustrations is that they are soft and they're beautiful, but they're extremely accurate. And I think my first foray into your work was with Flying Deep, which is obviously very necessary to be accurate.
Yes. It was a lot of research for that, and for this too. I love research and I love history. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to go down to the actual site because the pandemic had canceled all my plans. That's when everything got shut down. So I wasn't able to actually go to the site and get my own reference. So I had to research it as much as I could on the internet. But there's wonderful videos and pictures out there, and just hope to balance that tragedy with some hope. I'm a pretty hopeful person, and I want to give hope to the world. This page was very hard to do because I didn't want to show any airplanes or any terror, only the feeling that something terrible had happened. And this is a pretty iconic a picture of the towers falling and the tragedy that ensued. And I wanted to create the family in little photographic pictures where it felt like you were looking back at an album from, say, today. You would look back at an album at photos of what had happened. That sort of everything's a memory in a memory, where the tree is always in the back of your mind while you're looking at your photos in say a photo album, and you see your family and you see all the good times that you usually photograph and the warmth that happens that in everyday life, but always in the back of your mind, there's something tragic happening, something bad has happening, but you cling on to these hopeful moments in your life. And I'd hope to capture that through the architecture of the picture book.
Yeah, I think you did it beautifully. I'm a big scrapbooker, and it was totally evident to me. I was like, oh, it's just like a scrapbook, and she's got these, little pieces of their lives. And like I said, with my story, it moved the story along with the girl main character, because I tried to move the story through the seasons of the tree, but also children have seasons of their lives where they have, their first days of school were in the fall, and they, birthday parties and chasing fireflies and different things in the summer. So each season I knew in my mind what can I say that the kids are also doing, as well as paralleling the story of the tree, just to show the realistic, that the option, that life goes on,
Mm-hmm.
and we are living the life we're supposed to live. We are going on, but like you said, knowing, and having memory of the story is always kind of in the background, and we're always thinking about it, and knowing, we're lucky and we're going to keep moving forward. Yeah, so that's why it might worry some parents or teachers to try to teach this topic, because they're worried kids are going to get scared and they don't know what to do. But it's a story. This is ultimately a story of hope, and ultimately that's why I decided on the title, Branches of Hope, because I really wanted the title to encompass what the child should leave with after having read the book. Yes, this tree experienced tragedy, has scars, and did come back from sadness and grief, and so did everyone in New York, and so did the nation. And it's sort of this capsule of all of that, just in 3 words of the title, and through your beautiful illustrations. So I really hope teachers and parents embrace it in that way, knowing that yes, it tells the story, and it's a gentle way of telling the story, because I really wanted to stick to the facts. Like, your pictures were sticking to the facts. We made sure, on that one spread, how the tree was being transported, I made sure it was facing the right way, because I wanted that to be accurate, and just different things like that. The way it was being replanted, I double checked, and I asked Karen about that to check that again, just because I really wanted it to be an accurate depiction for kids. This is especially because, as a narrative nonfiction writer, I feel a big responsibility to kids, first off, but secondly, because this might be the first encounter that they have with the story. This might be the first time they've ever learned about the story, especially because it's labeled for ages 4 to 8. Well, a 4-year-old hasn't necessarily seen the images on TV, things like that. So their first impression is this book. Their first understanding, their first knowledge of this event could be this book. And that's a big responsibility. So I took that, I knew that coming in, and I said, I want it to be gentle language. I want it to be, I want the images to be very, like, you did a beautiful job with the palette, just soft and calm, and really, really, we couldn't have found a better place for the story, because it really, Charles Ridge did such a wonderful job making sure what I hoped would come across has come across.
Definitely. I think you can get that every page was a labor of love, truly. Honestly, I'm glad you brought that up too. I think that comes back to, in terms of trying to capture this moment for a young audience, do you have any thoughts or strategies that you'd like to share, whether it's with educators or caregivers? Do you have any thoughts as an elementary teacher, Anne, on other strategies or other resources that people could use?
Well, again, focusing on the stories of heroism is always a great approach. Even the few titles I can think off the top of my head, Fireboat and 14 Cows for America, I think it was called. And there's many others that I just can't think of off the top of my head right now. But focusing on the good that came out, the community just came together in a way. And I love that picture too. Just thinking of the way the community came together, with the candles. Remember that picture? Why can't I find it?
Oh, yeah.
This one where all the faces with the candles, the family in front there, and just the way the New York came together, and the communities are, everywhere in our nation, and probably internationally, came together, to pray and to think about the loss and the grief that we were experiencing. So these are things that kids experience: grief, sorrow, loss. And so they're not to be, in my opinion, we shouldn't be avoiding those conversations. These are conversations that can happen through sharing a picture book together. Our classroom is a community, and it's a safe place to talk and to listen to each other. And whatever questions would be asked, teachers have to take them from where they are at that point and just give them factual information at whatever they ask. That's, kind of how I handle tough situations. Kids are curious. They're going to ask questions, and you answer their questions honestly. You don't have to give more information. You literally answer their question, and when they're ready to ask something else, they do. And you certainly validate their feelings and, move forward from there. But there's picture books are just such a wonderful entry point for kids to learn about something new and to see themselves, and to know it's okay that this character in this book is experiencing this, and she's coming out in the end, and she's okay. And that's kind of where I stand with those kind of teaching tough topics, and not to shy away from them, but definitely start where the student is, where the child is. Depending on their age, they're in a different place of a knowledge base or emotional place, and just listen to them.
That was lovely. Thank you. I think too, some of what we can think about now, say versus the 10-year anniversary, is after 20 years, it really provides a lot of perspective. And while when we started, like, again, trying to figure out how do you discuss a topic like this, it's one of those things that it's really interesting because it also means at the end of the day, like, these are resources too that are great for children. They're also really great for adults. Something that really touched me when I read your author's note is, at the end of the day, you're explaining a difficult topic that you lived through and witnessed, right? So it's something that's kind of weighing, like, how do I approach this, and what are my resources in order to deal so I can talk about it appropriately. I feel like we're starting to gain more and more of that perspective as we move away from it. So to be able to say, instead of having something that can feel like really scary or sensationalist, or something that you're like, I have to adapt it for a younger crowd, I feel like this picture book in particular really fits the age range super well, and definitely provides, in a sense, a type of catharsis that can be great for both kids and adults. So definitely.
Yeah, I've had people come up to me, teachers come up to me, and they say they used it in their middle school class. They are already, like, over summer school, they used it already with older kids. And I was kind of surprised, but kind of glad too, because as an adult, I love children's literature. So it pleases me that other people feel the same way. And there's always something to be appreciated from a picture book, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that leads really well into my next question. So we've really achieved a balance here, discussing grief, the aftermath in a tragic event, and hope with Branches of Hope. Do either of you have books or resources that you reach for during a trying time, whether it's like a comfort read or just something, maybe you even read it with your kids?
When trying times happen, I think mostly I do deep dives into whatever the history might be, whatever the news from valid news sources. I'm very much into just investigating what has happened, why. I don't know, for as comfort reading, I probably is maybe Travels with Charlie from John Steinbeck. I kind of read at least once a year, and the whole idea of, like, going around America and just talking with people and understanding their lives sort of brings hope, and something I wish I could do more of finding the stories that people have to share, and um, in the hope that they can bring by just a nice conversation. And that helps a lot. And it's very reassuring when I read this
I
Travels with
love
Charlie every year.
Yeah, I love that, especially now with the new Zoom culture we have going on.
Yeah.
I think that, like, yeah,
Yeah.
chatting with somebody is like a really nice way.
I never thought I'd miss it so much, but I'm like, wow, I don't talk to people all day. Okay, I really miss this, and I miss people telling me their stories, and they often do. It's very nice, and it's nice to hear how everybody is. So they're not just a thing on the internet that you get upset about, or you just they're real, they're well rounded.
Right.
It's funny.
And how about you?
Well, I talk to people and hear stories all day long. So sometimes in the classroom. So sometimes I just want to escape all that. And I love Jane Austen. Happy endings are always, a plus in reality. So I love Jane Austen, and I love poetry by Mary Oliver, especially her nature poetry is beautiful. And Kate DiCamillo's when people ask me what my favorite book is, as an adult, I'm going to give you a children's book title as my favorite book. The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane by Kate DiCamillo is my favorite book. And that's another book where the main character sort of goes through different stages of his life and experiences grief and tragedy, and comes out the end different but okay. And maybe that's the kind of message that I just enjoy in my own reading, and been putting out into the world as well. So that's interesting. I never thought of it like that, but I guess that could be true.
I do love that both of your comfort reads echo a journey. That there is,
Yeah.
you're reaching out, interacting. I love that. Amazing. Thank you so much for chatting with me today. This was a wonderful talk. Branches of Hope is on sale now. You can feel free to get it anywhere books are sold. We'll also have a link in the description as well, so you can check it out for yourself. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Great seeing you.
Thank you.